Hey guys, welcome back to another video from Father and Son Investing. I want to talk to you today about a company that I am really excited about. I found out about over the weekend. It's taken me a couple of days to learn enough about the company to feel smart enough to make a presentation for you about it. What they're doing is really cool. Before we get into that, let me just quickly mention a couple of things. One, today is the start of baseball season. My son is an 18-year-old senior. He's a pitcher. I've seen him throw 85 miles an hour. And today we start high school baseball. So that's exciting. Number two, I wanted to talk to you just for a second about some of the things that I do to research stocks. One thing that I really like is WEBULL for their news. If you put in a watch list of your stocks, they will keep track of the news that's happening for those stocks. They're really good at it. You just click on the news tab. And so I really like that. So if you're interested in signing up for WEBULL, see the link down below in our notes section, in our comments section, and you can sign up there. You get 2 free stocks for doing it. On to the company that I'm excited about. It's called Transmedics. Transmedics, the ticker symbol is TMDX, and we're going to get into that right now. All right, Transmedics has been around for a few years. They went public back in 2019 with an initial public offering. They are a company that was invented essentially to solve a problem. There are hundreds of thousands of patients waiting for organ transplants in the United States. Obviously, much more than that around the world. The problem with organ transplants is that there is a very limited window that people have to get the organ from the donor, and that's always a sad thing. But nice to know that those organs can still be used and help somebody else. There's a limited time window to get the organs from that donor into the recipient. Generally, we're looking at about 6 hours. And so that creates a couple of dilemmas. A 6-hour time window obviously leaves a travel distance that beyond that is not going to work. So imagine a patient who lives in Hawaii who is either going to be the donor or who needs a heart transplant, and now trying to get them a heart to or from San Francisco is potentially outside that 6-hour time window. Now imagine if a company came along and could expand that time window, maybe up to 12 to 24 hours. That distance then that becomes usable could potentially spread from Hawaii to Chicago. How is this company expanding that time window? Well, they have developed a few really cool machines. What you see before you now is the lung machine, OCS, Organ Care System. They are also working on a heart machine, and they also have a machine for livers. Now, the heart and liver machine are functional, but they are currently under investigation or trials so that they can be approved by the FDA. What these machines do is they keep organs perfused while they're in transport. So they are taking a lung in this case, they put it in this machine that's like a box, and they perfuse it with blood and nutrients. Not only do they perfuse it, but they keep it warm. Now, normally a transplanted organ gets stuck in an ice box, and just like anything else that's put on ice, it gets cold, it gets frozen, and it's, in this case of an organ, it's not getting oxygen. So cells within that organ will start to die during that transport, and that's a large part of why there's that 6-hour window. Instead, they will maintain that lung or heart or liver at 98.6 degrees. Not only can they maintain it at that temperature, but they also have a system where they can test the organ while it's on the machine to make sure that it's getting the right amount of oxygen. That organ then is going to be more viable, more alive, and hopefully what we'll see is that there are better outcomes. When it comes to the lung machine, it has already been FDA approved and is already in use. Now, something that I didn't know about transplants before I started researching this is that all the organs getting removed from a donor are not getting transplanted. Now, you might think some of them, okay, something's going to happen in the process, but it is a large amount. In fact, it is a majority. This statistic here says that only 2 to 3 out of 10 organs get used. And when we're looking at the complications post-transplant, we're looking at about 30 to 35% of post-transplant complications. So these are organs that are being put in cold storage where they get ischemic, meaning they don't have the oxygen that they need. they're not getting optimized, and there's no way to assess its viability really before you stick it in to a recipient. Now, the other thing that I learned as I started investigating this company is that they resolve a lot of those problems. So now, instead of looking at 2 to 3 of those organs getting used, we're looking in the range now more like 8 to 9 of those organs getting used of each one that gets harvested. And the post-transplant complication rate goes down. Remember, it was 30 to 35%. We're looking now at 10 to 14%. This graph here reiterates what I just said about the number of organs getting utilized after they are removed from a donor. So 23% of lungs usually, that goes up to 87%. 32% of hearts goes up to 81%. For hearts that are removed from somebody who has already suffered a cardiac death, right now 0% of those are getting used. Transplant hearts come from people who are brain dead. The heart is still functioning when they remove it. In this case, this company has expanded the availability of hearts essentially by taking hearts from patients who have suffered a cardiac death, putting those on that machine that we saw earlier, and now 90% of those hearts can get used. That is a game changer when it comes to availability of organs for these hundreds of thousands of people who are awaiting transplants. Now, I need to tell you that this part of it has not yet been FDA approved. In fact, the heart machine has not been FDA approved yet. It's being used in multiple centers around the United States, and they also have other areas around the world who are looking into these machines as well. And also, this indication for using hearts from cardiac deaths has not yet been approved either. But there is promising data coming from this. I'm excited to know that on April 6th, Transmedics has scheduled a review with the FDA to review their heart machine, their OCS heart. Now, the use of it for cardiac deaths will most likely not be approved at this April 6th meeting. This is still very investigational and still very early, but still very exciting. Now, when it comes to their OCS liver, there's also some good data or exciting data coming out of that. The big thing that I see out of this is, 98% of the livers from both brain dead and cardiac death donors are getting utilized, but this 84% reduction in long-term biliary complications. Biliary, that's the bile ducts that flow through bile through your liver out towards your gallbladder. And they are very susceptible to ischemia, meaning when they are oxygen deprived, they get injured. And when those bile ducts get injured, you have patients who have all sorts of complications with jaundice, etc. 84% reduction in those complications by keeping that liver perfused on their machine. Now, another exciting thing about this company is the OCS National Service Program. They started this last year. It started with just 4 centers in the United States, initially just in Chicago, but they expanded that to New England and Atlanta and Dallas as well. This is a program where this company will harvest the organ, take care of it en route on their machine, perfusing it with the specialists that they have, and fly it to where the recipient is so that the team on the other end doesn't have to take care of sending someone to go get the organ, flying them back with it, worrying about the 6-hour time limit of having that organ on ice. Essentially, the OCS program contacts them, says, we have an organ, would you like it? The recipient service says, yep, we'll take that organ, and then they can have it flown directly there using Transmedics. This is exciting. So as I mentioned, this initially started in 4 areas. They plan to expand that even further throughout the United States. So this is a nice service. There was some concern about reimbursement for this, but what you need to know is that this is already being done, essentially. You know, the organ procurement services are already flying organs around the country, and that is being reimbursed already. So this is not something different. They're just providing this as a service. Now, Transmedics is distancing themselves from competition. They are the leader in this service. They have over 200 patents already issued for their intellectual property regarding those machines that we saw earlier. They have already established a global presence, and they have multiple possible FDA PMAs, and they're working on new indications as well. They are doing the research. They are doing the studies and printing those studies in well-known medical journals. These studies show that they improve outcomes, which is really what we want to see through exciting medical technology, improving outcomes, improving patient years, improving patient lives. Their platform is versatile as well. You already saw that they're using it for heart. You saw the lung, you saw the liver. The next thing that they plan to get into is using this same type of machine to keep kidneys perfused. You know, in medicine, we like to talk about the standard of care, and this potentially will change the standard of care such that in the future, no longer will organs be kept on ice to transplant them. They're going to be put on these little tiny machines that will keep them perfused and healthy. What kind of market are we looking at here? Well, currently their revenues are only in the millions, and this is a multi-billion-dollar market. In fact, if we look at their fourth quarter earnings result, we'll see that for the fourth quarter of 2020, their revenue was only $7.6 million. Now, that was a 26% growth year over year, but still only $7.6 million in a multi-billion-dollar potential market. If we look at their revenue for the full year of 2020, they're at $25 million roughly versus $23 million the year before. Their gross profit for the year was $16 million versus $13 million the year before. Now, like many of these startup companies who are innovating, they are still losing money. They went from losing, though, $33.5 million in 2019 to just under $29 million in net losses for 2020. And if we look at it from an earnings per share basis, they had a loss of $2.36 for 2019, and they improved that to a loss of $1.16 per share for 2020. Yeah, we'll skip that part because they have more shares. So why do I think this is a company worth investing in? In fact, I bought some of the stock today. I wish I'd learned about it even better yesterday because it went up 18% yesterday. But you know, you got to take your time to do your due diligence. Why do I think this is an exciting company? One, it is innovative and transformative. This changes the standard of care potentially for transplants. Two, it multiplies the number of organs that are available. Not only from that 6-hour time window, but now we're looking like that exciting study about people who have suffered cardiac death, hearts which have stopped, potentially being used as transplants. That is going to be a huge game changer for cardiac transplants. And finally, here's another reason why I think this is a company that might be worth investing in. You know, metrics, whatever a metric is what tends to get done. In the past, the CMS, those are the people who are running Medicare essentially in the United States, CMS has had some metrics that really just looked at how many organs were getting removed from an organ donor, but not necessarily how many organs were being transplanted. Those metrics are being changed. Again, just to reiterate, OPOs, those are organ procurement organizations. It says here, in the past, they've had to meet 2 out of 3 outcomes, either the donation rate of eligible donors, that says nothing about whether those organs got used, just that they were donated, the observed or actual donation rate, and donor yield, meaning the number of procured organs per donor. But again, it says nothing about the number of organs that were put in. So those metrics are going to be changed now. The first new measure is going to be a donation rate, and it measures the number of organs that the organ procurement organization procures from eligible donors in its donation service area. Great. Number of organs procured, that's still a good metric to do. But the second measure will measure the transplant rate. So no longer can these organ procurement organizations simply procure an organ. It needs to be put in. That creates incentive. That creates incentive for these organ procurement organizations to transplant and use all viable organs. And they are going to want those organs to be healthy before they are transplanted. Remember that this is a multi-billion-dollar potential market, and right now they are only in the $20 million range of that market. So they have a vast amount of space that they can expand into, and they have the intellectual property and the patents to help develop a moat around their service, or at least to keep competitors at bay for a while until they can establish themselves as clearly the market leader. We're going to finish up just by taking a quick look at their stock price. It's $41.71 today. It's a little lower than when I bought it, but that's okay. It went up 18%, like I said yesterday. Over the past, just this year, it's gone from right around $20 to this $41 range. It's definitely on its way up. It's taking some cycles up and down. So this is one to keep an eye on. If you see it dip just a little bit, might be a chance for you to buy in. What do the analysts have to say about it? Well, the current price target is $51.25, so we're less than that. It ranges from a high of 79 to a low of 38, and we're seeing a strong buy out of 4 analysts, with 3 of them saying buy and 1 saying hold. Nobody's saying sell. Remember to get the young people in your life investing. I had another great question coming up from someone yesterday who was trying to get a custodial Roth IRA. That is fantastic. Get the young people in your life investing with custodial accounts. Go back and look at some of the videos I did about Charles Schwab and their custodial accounts. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. We'd love to have you subscribe. And until next time, enjoy your investing.